What is up, guys? Welcome to Air Marshal Mondays. It is someday, March 8th, episode number 63. 63? What? So it's good to see everybody today. The weather's getting good. Hopefully some folks got to go and do some flying today. See, Ute fans got it figured out. As soon as the lipo hits 420, I'm out here to fly. So that is cool. He's going to fly right now. So it's good to see everybody in here tonight. That's how we do it, Shadow. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all the good folks in here. We got Shadow Ops RC, we got Mike SSI, we got Craig Beaven, we got Victor Shamulus, Mr. George Watts, Jetman, Plains Archery and Table Tennis, what is going on? Jermaine Spencer, hello sir. Jeff's Custom RC, Don Shack, Tug Hill RC, hello sir. Richard Webb, TNRC Pilot, SD Ute Fan, Barry Campbell, got some flying in, that's awesome. JCB 67, good evening to you. Vito Campanaro, I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's all right. Good to see everybody tonight. Joe Habib. How's it going, Joe? I don't think I've seen you in a while. Thanks for stopping by tonight. We got Joe Pellegrino in the house. Hello, sir. I don't think we're really doing a beard contest, but, you know, I think Ryan's might be growing faster than mine. Mine starts doing weird stuff, which is why y'all see me, you know, I'll grow it and then I'll just hack it off. Because it doesn't grow right, you know. It like contours to my face. It just grows like straight back, you know, instead of growing down. And if I'm gonna do a big beard, I want it to be like all ZZ Toppy. You know, I want it to be cool. So like it grows down, like it's coming down, see? Like the hair is longer, but it just curls up this way and it gets annoying. So it's like it's all thick, you know, so like I can get it like all crazy like and get these crazy, you know, sideburn actions happening. So I guess, you know, if I'm gonna let it grow out, that's what I'm talking about, George Watts. Beard cream. See, Jeff's Custom RC. I figure if anybody knows the answer on how to get hair to grow right, it'd be our man Jeff's Custom RC with the good information. Tyson D. Strong. Yeah, I'm sure gravity will help, you know, but like how much longer can I grow it before I just get so annoyed that I just want to shave it off again? And that's what happens, right? It gets to about here, and that's when it starts getting itchy, you know, and I'm just like scratching it all the time. And like I just don't know. I just don't know. I've never had the patience to just let it go, you know. Oh, Ute fan, Ute's getting antsy. Dylan Eisfelder, hello sir. GB Linden, what's up? All right, so tonight it's just me, right? I got no airplanes. It's just me hanging out. And Paul McNeil, how you doing? Welcome to the show, David Martin Graff. Hello, sir. I look like a rabbi. That's funny. Yeah, you know, Randy, that's true. There can only be one bear wrestler. That ain't me. My shoulders ain't broad enough to be wrestling no bears. So, today it's just me, and I wanted to do kind of a Q&A type of style, you know? Y'all got questions, I got answers, right? Nice weather. That's Papa Boozer work right there. So if y'all know the Mary Boozer RC and Papa Boozer and the Wesley Boozer, that is Papa Boozer's handiwork. Ute's getting close. He's about to run outside and fly a plane. I don't know what he's flying, but he's running. He's ready to go. So before we get started with like question and answer type of thing, all things Spectrum, batteries, battery chargers, airplanes, Dynam stuff, E-flite stuff, whatever questions y'all have, I am here to answer them. But before we get to that, I wanted to bring up a little something, some things that I have learned, here recently. Sorry, the dogs are barking because Amy's outside and there's nobody upstairs with them, and when they don't have people tending to them, they get all freaking barky, dumb. Barry Campbell, that's awesome, man. So, let me share with you what I have learned here in the last week since our last episode of Air Marshal Mondays. I have learned that, and some of you might take this as me bashing G2 batteries, right? The new Spectrum G2 smart batteries. And that is not the case. Not the case. But what I have learned is that when it comes to these smart batteries, the new G2 smart batteries specifically, so the G1s never had this problem. And it's not even a problem. It's just an observation on my part. And at first I thought it was a problem. I was like, oh man, I've got an issue here. So here's what happened, right? Let me set up the scenario for you. I've got my Red Cat Gen 8 V2 crawler. Thing is awesome. Love it. And I'm doing some upgrades on it, right? I'm putting in one of the Spectrum Smart Firma 40 amp brushed ESC receiver combos, which is fantastic, by the way. If you got a brush crawler, highly recommend it. It's fantastic. So I plug in a new Spectrum G2 smart battery, and I'm not getting any telemetry on it. And it seems odd, right? Because I know how to set these things up. I'm not a dummy. I'm setting the thing up, and I'm not getting any telemetry data, which seems odd. So I check everything. I make sure that I'm sitting at 11 milliseconds because it does have digital servos, so I should be able to use 11 milliseconds and still get telemetry. If you're using 5.5 milliseconds, there is no telemetry. I knew that already. I set it to 22 milliseconds, still didn't get into any telemetry data. I take that battery and I plug it into my smart checker, and I'm not getting any cell data on the smart checker. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? It reads the voltage, but it's not reading the cell data. I plug it into my S1500 charger. Nothing, no cell data. And my S1500 has been updated to the G2 firmware. I plug it into the 1400, which is the new G2 charger, it reads the cell data. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So I sent an email off to Tom, because this is something that, like, you know, it's one of those things that's so puzzling that I don't want to bother Spectrum support about it, because they're just going to be like, send us a battery, we'll send you another one, right? And maybe that's cool. Maybe that's the right answer. But that's not, I didn't want to do that. So I sent a message to Tom, right? Tom Cogswell at Spectrum. He's got a lot of answers. And Tom asked me, is everything updated? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I mean, I've got the G2 update for the smart checker. I've got the G2 update in all of my chargers. The only thing that doesn't have an update, because there isn't any updates available, is that Firma ESC. And they haven't done any updates for that particular ESC yet, for the 40 amp brushed ESC. So, Tom is like confused. He's like, look, just send it to me. Our product development guys want to see the battery, and I'll send you another one. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, this was probably like a Friday night that I sent it to him, or that I reached out. And the next day, just out of curiosity, I'm going to make some videos, because I know that there were some new, there's a new smart update package out for the chargers that includes like the driver, right? So I wanted to make a video on how to update the chargers from the G1 firmware over to the G2 firmware, which is something that a lot of people have asked me about, and I didn't want to do it until the chargers were part of the package. You could go and find the driver for the USB to serial interface, but it has not up until recently been included in the package. There had a little link in the updater software. The link didn't work, right? So now that has been updated, and the latest version of the PDF has a download link to get the driver for the USB to serial link. All right, so I go to make that video, and you guys have seen it, right? I updated the smart checker from, I think, the .15 firmware, so like 100.15 to 10018. And the next day I take that smart checker after it's been updated, and I'm like, well, let me just see what happens. Now that I've got the smart checker updated, if I plug this battery in. I plug the battery in, still don't get any cell voltages, and a couple seconds later the smart checker says, you want to update the firmware in this battery? And I'm like, what the hell? So it knows that it's a smart battery, so I go ahead and I update the firmware of the battery. And lo and behold, updating the firmware of the battery, now it can read the cells. Plug it into my S1500, it's reading the cells. Plug it into my my Gen 8, now the Firma ESC is reading the cells. I can see them on my DX5, my surface transmitter. So the point is that with the new G2 batteries, they work fantastic, but you got to make sure that like everything, especially all of your legacy devices, so like your smart checker, the S1100, the S1200, the S2100, the S1500, the S120, S150, you got to make sure that all of your legacy equipment has been updated to the latest and greatest firmware, and that the batteries are all updated as well. So if you run into a situation where you've got a battery, one of the new G2 packs that's not being, not sending telemetry data across, or it's not sending, cell data or temp data to the smart checker, or it's not sending it to one of your older chargers, make sure you got everything to the latest and greatest firmware revisions. And that includes your ESCs, your transmitters, everything that was around before those G2 batteries, get all that stuff updated. And the reason I bring that up is just to kind of stress the importance of keeping everything up to date as, Spectrum kind of grows their product portfolio to maintain backwards compatibility on those older devices with the new batteries. The G2 batteries do charge great on the older, Gen 1 chargers. You just got to make sure that everything is good to go. And if you run into an event where it doesn't read nothing, make sure your smart checker is updated. I've got a video, not in the description here, but it's definitely on my channel, and I think it's under the Spectrum Smart playlist. You will find a link there, and also in my how-to playlist on how to update the smart checker to the .18 firmware revision, and then you can actually update the batteries with the smart checker. At least for now, I don't think the chargers will update the battery, but the smart checker will. So that's my spiel to start the show. If you're going to run G2 batteries, make sure everything is good to go. Updated, updated, updated. I'm going to have to back up. All right, no problem, man. And I hope it worked out for you and you got it updated and you didn't have any problems. So, Miss Amy Marshall, hello. I know her. Thank y'all for wishing her well. C Mafia. Here's C Mafia's questions. I had to back up a little bit to get to C Mafia's question. And this is actually really good. He says, why do they have 5,000 milliamp hour battery packs with 100C ratings with 130 amp rated connectors on them? All right. So for those of you guys that understand C ratings and all that stuff, the C rating is a suggestion of how many continuous current amps we can pull from the battery, right? So on a 5,000 pack with a 100C rating, that would suggest that we can pull a continuous current of 500 amps across that connector. And C Mafia's question is, if we can pull 500 amps across that connector, why do they put a connector that's only rated for 130 amps of continuous current? And my question to you would be, man, I have no idea. No idea. That is a great question. I mean, Just Custom, that's probably true. I certainly wouldn't want to pull 500 amps across that pack. What paint and what thinner? Yeah, even 50C. I mean, 50C is a little more reasonable, right? Pulling 250 amps of current in kind of a burst fashion across those connectors is probably not going to hurt them that much. But, I'd say for the most part, most of us aren't running power setups that are going to pull more than 100 to 150 amps anyway. And I think that you're probably good. What is up, Spitzer Keith? what ESC did I put in the Hellcat? The Hellcat has an 80 amp Tomcat ESC in it. And I hope it holds up. Now, I mean, I'm going to try to run it on 4S, but I think I might burn out that motor on 4S. I ain't going to lie. That G25 motor is bad to the bone, but it spends a lot of RPMs. On 3S, just in my head calculations, that 1140 kV motor is going to spend more RPMs at higher torque than the 650 kV motor that comes in a lot of those 4S Warbirds. So on 3S, it's already going to theoretically be faster than the 4S planes, and running it on 4S is going to make it that much faster still. I mean, I'll give you a rough idea how fast it's going to go. If you watch Bobby, Big Go Hobby's video where he folded the wings on the T-28, he had the same power system. All right. Speaking of cats, he's just going to hang out up here on the table today. Jackson RC, how you doing tonight, sir? All right, so that's a good question, C Mafia. I honestly have no idea why manufacturers do that. Let's see. Yeah, Jeff in Lower Alabama. I think that we should throw those in those $20 F-14s too. Yeah, and I know that there's some folks out there that will say that, like, say a 6065C battery will give them more punch than a 6030C pack, where a 6030C pack can theoretically run a continuous current of 180 amps, which is far in excess of the max continuous current that you're going to get out of a lot of EDF jets. So if that's the case, then why is it that people say that they can feel that punch? Is that a psychological thing? Does it really feel like the motor's spinning up faster? Most of the batteries I use are 50C packs because they're readily available. But when I run like a 30C pack as opposed to a 50C pack, and we're talking like 5,000s, so like I can't tell a big difference between a 5,000 30C and a 5,000 50C, where one should have a theoretical continuous current of 150 amps, the other one should have a theoretical continuous current of 250 amps. So, one would think that the 5050C, I should see more punch, right? And I just haven't found that to be the case. Now, I think there could probably be a case made for when a battery gets a little older and your so as the battery gets a little older and your internal resistances start to go up, I think that a higher C battery may perform a little better. It's not going to tire out as fast as a lower C battery. I have absolutely zero empirical data to say that for certain, but I feel like that's probably how that would go. Eh. Dennis Farley, that is correct. So batteries, and Dennis Farley brings up a good point. Batteries don't push current, right? So if I hook up a 5,000 100C pack that can have a theoretical continuous current of 500 amps, which is insane, it's not going to push 500 amps to a motor. A motor can only draw so much current, and ESC can only draw so much current. So I may have the ability to provide up to 500 amps, but it doesn't mean that I'm just going to push that out. The only thing that pushes current like that is a charger. So when I set up a charger to, say, a 10 amp charge rate, it's actually pushing 10 amps of power into the battery. The battery is just a static storage medium, right? It's potential energy, not kinetic. It's not pushing. It's there to provide the power source necessary to create work, right? So you still have to hook up a load, and that load is going to have a need. So whatever amount of current that load is pulling, that's the amount that the battery is going to give it, unless it's just not capable of it, in which case you will destroy the battery and oftentimes the load as well. Sorry, Mickey B. The cat is attacking me. No, you can't. I mean, if you tried to pull 500 amps through an EC5 connector, you're probably going to melt the connector. Yes, we are pet friendly. It's true, Roland. It's true. So, that's a good question to start off the show tonight. Why do batteries have connectors that can't keep up with their rated continuous current draw? I don't know. You done caught me. No idea. All right. And as always, I've still got my line of Coke. All right, so someone had said that they needed help with Spectrum programming. So in order to make myself ready for almost all Q&A scenarios tonight, I happen to have in front of me my NX10, my iX12, and my fancy TX16S. So, I can sit here and start singing like these are a few of my favorite things. So, if you guys do have questions about like specific programming issues that you're running into, what I don't have is an airplane ready to go with like a forward programming receiver. So, some of that stuff I may not be able to like right off the top of my head answer your questions, but a lot of it I will either just know off the top of my head or we can figure it out. This cat is a bum. A bum. Oh, GB Linden. That new tripod I got, I think it is a I will tell you. Joe Pellegrino, not yet. I haven't updated mine since the 2.3.10 release. That may have been fixed in 2.3.11. I need to update my OpenTX and see if it made a difference. And also update my multi-protocol module. Here I am talking about updates, and I'm like a month behind on my OpenTX stuff. GB. That model number is... I'll tell you in a second, man. I'm waiting for my stupid Amazon app to like load up. It's just a big blank screen right now. What a piece of junk. Cooking tacos? What's up with that, Goony Egg? But you don't really cook tacos. You just heat up meat. All right, GB, are you ready? Are you ready to write it down? It is the K&F Concept SA25 SA254T1. Dang, Ken Sprouse got it right. That guy's been like lurking. Oh, you know what? No, he's not. Yeah, it is the K&F Concept SA254T1. And it stands, that camera, at full tilt 93 inches off the ground, which is absolutely freaking crazy. Yes, Mickey B, it does roll right off the tongue. BD Tennessee. So, Joe Pellegrino, and sorry, BD Tennessee, we'll get back to that. Joe Pellegrino, the 2.3.10, I think, was the first version that introduced the DSM forward programming. I've got that Lua script in my TX16S with the 2.3.10 firmware, but it doesn't act quite right. It does some weird stuff, like, excuse me. You can look at the cat like, what was that? So, F you, Kenny. Like, I can get into forward programming, but it will not manipulate the menus. So I can open it up, and I can see the start screen, but if I try to go to any of the options, like with the scroll wheel and click on it, it doesn't go any further than that, you know? So it's like, it's kind of there, but it's not. It's kind of weird. Barry Campbell, I have tried that. Look, man, any cat video that I see on the internet, this cat gets it, right? So if I thought that I could scare him with a cucumber, I'd have cucumbers all over the house. And I'd like sit it next to him and then tap him on the shoulder, you know, and he'd look at the cucumber and then like, and be gone. But it don't work, man. But it'd be awesome if it did. Bledsoe, you got that right. Ken Sprouse, I have not tried that yet, and I do apologize. I should do that, but I'm a loser. Okay. So I'm going back up here. I updated my radio and SD card to firmware 2.3.11. Do I need to do something to multi-protocol module? BD Tennessee, yes. So about as frequent as new versions of OpenTX come out, or even more frequently, the multi-protocol module will also receive updates. And the way that you do those is you have to load the update file into your onto your SD card. I just have a folder in there that I called like npm updates, npm firmware. You put the update folder, or you put the update file into your npm update or npm firmware folder, and you can go into, let's see here.
Welcome to the Radio Master TX16S.
Welcome to the Radio Master.
Angle mode, total mode off, disarm.
Welcome to Radio Master. Let's see. So if I go over here to firmware, and I pick, so right now I'm looking at multi STM OpenTX AETR no inverted V1.3.1.69. That is the latest version of the firmware I have loaded. If you long press that folder, it will allow you to either flash the internal multi-protocol module or the external multi-protocol module. On the TX16S, it is internal. So you would just long press that file, go to flash internal multi, and it will update your multi-protocol module for you. And that is all there is to that. It is actually really simple. The hardest part is going to the multi-protocol website and downloading the firmware file. So I believe that you go to, I believe it's multimodule.org. And when you go to multimodule.org, you'll go down to like the download section, and you have to tell it, you know, the different options that you want. So for me, and most likely for you as well, you know, if you've got a Radio Master, you would tell it that you've got a Radio Master TX16S, that you do not want inversion set, so it'd be no inversion. You can pick the channel order that you want everything to come into the multi-protocol module on, right? So I have mine set to AETR, which is aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, which is pretty much the default for everything that you set up in there, which means that it wants AETR into the multi-protocol module, and then it sends out the default for that receiver, right? So even though I'm sending AETR in, if I am operating a Spectrum receiver on the multi-protocol module, it's going to send TAER out, which confuses some people. Like they're thinking, oh, it's Spectrum, so I better program it as TAER. The multi-protocol module does that for you. So you program it AETR. Everything is AETR. And download the update file. I'm not sure what the latest version is that they've got. Like I said, mine ends in .69. They probably got a later version than that out now. You download that from the little link that Joe Pellegrino just said. BD Tennessee, I created a lot of custom sounds for mine. So it doesn't just say...
Welcome to the Radio Master TX16S.
Yeah, that's a custom thing that I
Angle
made.
mode, turbo mode off, disarm.
That is not normal. And also when I go into like my different models, right? So if I go over to, say, my model select, go here.
Bridge warning.
Select that crap.
Safe disabled. High rates. Throttle cut on. Flaps up.
Yeah, you can hear it talking about like
Safe enabled.
safe enabled,
Safe disabled.
safe disabled. Those are not standard callouts on an OpenTX radio. I created all that, and I, because I'm a stickler for continuity, I made them to sound as close as possible as I could to my iX12. Yes. So my iX12 also has an Australian accent. Nice, Ute. George Watts, not really. I think that once you have everything kind of sitting where it is, sitting in a good spot, you don't have to keep updating it. But as with everything, at least for me, if there is a new firmware out for something, there's usually a reason that the developers went to the trouble of creating a new firmware release. And if it fixes something that I have a problem with, I'm going to update it. Right? So, where I do have, new G2 batteries, and I have old legacy G1 batteries and G1 chargers and smart checkers and ESCs and transmitters, and I've got a lot of things that were created during that Gen 1 cycle of the Spectrum Smart equipment. So in order for the G2 batteries to really communicate well with some of that legacy gear, you have to make sure that everything is updated. So, is it something where it needs to be updated all the time? Not really. But right now we're kind of in a cycle where you have to get everything updated to be able to use the newer batteries. So we're just kind of in one of those times right now. All right. So hopefully, tonight or tomorrow I'll be adding a video on how to update the smart batteries. And hopefully it doesn't come across as G2 batteries suck and you need to update them to get them to work with your old stuff. It's more of a precautionary tale, if you will, that if you're going to run, these new batteries on older gear, you got to make sure that the older gear firmware is updated and the battery firmware is updated so it maintains that cross compatibility. All right, so BD Tennessee, here's the deal. With the multi-protocol module on OpenTX, you can set the incoming channel order to whatever you want. There's really no restrictions there. However the multi-protocol module is set up, that's what it wants to see coming in. Right? So the radio talks to the multi-protocol module, which in turn talks to the receiver on the other side. So from the radio software, what I send into the multi-protocol module, I need to tell the multi-protocol module, based on the firmware that I load, what I want to send in. As far as those first 4 channels are concerned. Are TAER, AETR, you can pick any order you want. RATE. Cat, move your big fat ass. I think he's just going to spin around in circles up here for a bit. And now he's going to lay down again. All right. So when you load the firmware into your multi-protocol module, you tell it at the time that you download the multi-protocol module firmware what you want to use in your radio. Right? So when the radio sends the inputs to the multi-protocol module, whether that's AETR, TAER, whichever version you downloaded, right? So the version download description will tell you, that this is multi-protocol firmware, AETR, TAER, whatever the case may be. If you set it up as TAER, then everything that you send in there needs to be set up to TAER. If you set it up as AETR for the multi-protocol firmware, everything you send in to the multi-protocol module should be AETR, right? It doesn't matter if it's Spectrum, if it's Futaba, if it's FrSky, if it's FlySky, if it's whatever. Whatever version of the firmware you're running, that's what it wants to see coming in, right? Because remember, we've got the OpenTX software that talks to the multi-protocol module, and then the multi-protocol module in turn talks to the receiver. It's that intermediary between the two. And Spectrum does the same thing. We've got the Airware software that talks to the channel processor, right? And the channel processor is the transmitter module, and the transmitter module in turn talks to the receiver. With OpenTX, it's got 4 different transmitter modules that can talk to like 70 different protocols, which is super slick for us. And what happens inside that inside the multi-protocol module is whatever I've got coming in, it translates it to the right outputs going out. So if I take an airplane that I know I'm going to bind to a Spectrum receiver, I still program it as AETR, even though I know Spectrum uses TAER, right? It uses throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder. That's channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Even though I know that's the case, I still program it in OpenTX as AETR. I send that into the multi-protocol module. The multi-protocol module knows that the default for Spectrum is TAER, and it's going to reverse all the stuff around and rearrange it in the right order to be able to speak to Spectrum normally. And hopefully all of that just made sense. Yeah, Roach Coach, man, I know. Hey, sorry I never got to call you back, man. I had a bunch of, I had the phone call this afternoon, and then I had my dad call, and then my mom called, and then I had a call with an insurance company. It's been a busy night, man. And then I had to do the show. So if you want, we can either talk tomorrow, or when the show is over tonight, you can give me a ring. All right, Beatty, Tennessee, we're there. All right, let's make it simple. What order for profile and transmitter, order and protocol, and in settings of the radio in the settings menu? So Beatty, Tennessee, again, it depends on the firmware that you're running in your multi-protocol module. If you are running an AETR version of the firmware for your multi-protocol module, program everything in OpenTX as AETR, regardless of which module you are binding to. Does the NX10 work differently with the GPS module of the Apprentice? It shouldn't. Although I think, that's a good question, David Martin Graff. I think there is something funky going on with the GPS modules. And it could be that they don't work right with SRXL2 yet, and they're making a new GPS module that will function properly with SRXL2. I believe I saw that somewhere recently. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's probably right. That's right, Barry Campbell. It needs an update. Tug Hill, that is about the answer that I just gave. That seems pretty spot on. All right, so BD Tennessee. It doesn't matter what firmware you're running in the radio, right? If you're running OpenTX 2.3.11, 2.3.10, either one, that's fine. When you download the software for the multi-protocol module, it's going to ask you what you want your channel order to be. If you want it to be AETR, TAER, whatever. That defines how you're going to program it in the radio. Does that make sense? You should see it when you go to download the multi-protocol stuff. Hey, it's y'all's night tonight, man. Y'all want to talk about stuff that doesn't hurt your brains? Ask me something different. Ken Sprouse, I am on the same firmware version. 3.04.01 PB. PB, by the way, stands for Public Beta, which means that we are the testers. That it's gone through internal alpha testing, and now we get to do the beta testing. The public. Yep, so BD Tennessee, if the firmware that you download for your multi-protocol module has TAER as the channel order, then every model you set up in OpenTX needs to be TAER. Randy, what's my favorite radio? All of them. Yeah, BD Tennessee. I mean, that's the easy way to do it. If you want it to be very Spectrum familiar and feel like you're setting up a Spectrum radio and look similar, then by all means, get the TAER firmware for your multi-protocol module, and that's how you'll set up everything in OpenTX. George Watts, the channel order only matters. I don't know how it is in Futaba. The channel order matters in Spectrum radios. Because Spectrum receivers have certain functionality built into certain ports, right? So port 1 on a Spectrum receiver is your throttle port. On newer Spectrum receivers, that throttle port is also an SRXL2 serial port on the signal wire, right? So not only can it send the signal data to cause the arm to sweep back and forth, but it can also send bidirectional serial data across that signal pin at the same time. So it's very specific that port 1 has to be your throttle cable. And that's how it gets all of the telemetry data from your ESC back to the that's how it gets all that telemetry data from your ESC, from your motor, from your battery. That is basically the heart of the smart ecosystem, is that bidirectional SRXL2 serial protocol. So yeah, for Spectrum it matters because I mean your ESC has to go to port 1. I know with OpenTX, it's you can put anything on any port you want. If you've got a free port and you want that free port to be another flap channel, you can do whatever you want. BD Tennessee, I don't know that I would buy that. I wouldn't worry too much about it. My favorite style of barbecue, I'm gonna have to go with like a nice, like a nice sweet and smoky Carolina barbecue. I like them wet. I like the sauce to be thick. I don't like that runny sauce. So that's where we're at. Yes. The wetter and the thicker, the better. So BD Tennessee, the way that you check your multi-protocol module.
Master TX16S.
Hold on, let this lady say her piece.
High rates, throttle cut on, flaps up.
So you press the model button, press and hold that. You go to your model setup, and on your internal RF, you're going to see multi, DSM, whatever. And then it's going to have a module status. That module status tells you the version that your multi-protocol is on. So it's under model setup almost all the way to the bottom. You're going to look under internal RF and go to module status. Right now mine is at v1.3.1.69 AETR. Right, so mine is set up as an AETR, and it's on 1.3.1.69, and that goes for all OpenTX stuff. If you're looking for the version of your multi-protocol module, that's how you find it. The next virtual fly-in will be give me a second, because I hope it's not April 1st. We're going to do a virtual fly-in on April 5th. We are probably not going to be doing any big events, but I want to have something, because organizing something like that takes time, and I wanted to throw it together, I think, a little too fast. But next year during the winter, we are definitely going to be having some kind of large virtual master, like virtual scale master competition, and there would be big prizes and sponsors and all kinds of neat stuff. Yeah, 13091 is pretty old. So I think mine, what was it, 13169?
Safe disabled, high rates, throttle cut on, flaps up.
And I'm not sure what the latest version is that's on the the multi-module website. I don't know. Yeah, mine is 13169. William Bevel, welcome to the show. We're getting a little geeky talking about radios and Spectrum stuff and OpenTX stuff and getting crazy. So if you got any questions about radios or anything RC, throw them at us. All right, BD Tennessee. Internal modules are the ones that are built into the TX16S. So that's an internal multi-module. External is something that would plug into the JR bay in the back. So right now, you know, where I've got that empty JR bay right now, and I took my Crossfire module out. So if you've got a Crossfire, they make multi-modules, the same thing that we're talking about right now. You can get an external multi-module that'll plug into these things. For the TX16S, we are using an internal multi-module. So you are going to want to do flash internal. Flash internal. JJ Londa, I made it myself. I recorded all of those voices using a Google text-to-speech generator with an Australian female accent and very specific settings to get it to sound as close to my iX12 as I could. Yeah, so I made that. I recorded all of them into Audacity and built my own voice package. Because I am super stupid geeky like that. Oh wow, 13258. So the 13169 that I'm on is even super old. How do you get the strut off an E-flite retract? Hit it with a heat gun. And then if that doesn't work, stick it in the freezer. And then if that doesn't work, hit it with a heat gun again. And then if that doesn't work, stick it in the freezer again. And if that doesn't work, stick it with a heat gun again. So the point is, cycle hot and cold, and it'll expand and contract the metal. And the aluminum and the steel should expand and contract at different rates. And eventually you'll be able to get the grub screw out. There should be a grub screw holding the strut onto the retract stem. So you should be able to get that grub screw out. It may still be locked on there with some Loctite. Heat it up, cool it off, heat it up, cool it off. Get that metal to expand and contract a few times, and you should be able to back it out. Air vexed, all of the above, man. All of the above. Yeah, Boss 223, what? Are we talking a front retract, rear retract, main retract, nose wheel? Yeah, right. So that's what I was about to say. You might have to take the retract apart because there'll be one of those Jesus clips at the top of the pin that goes through the retract trunnion. And if it's got one of those little Jesus clips on there, then good luck. You can get it out, you know, but not without taking the retract apart. All right, I gotta read what happened with Wild Bill. What's going on here? Truck ran up on my. Oh, what? Dang. Wild Bill. Hangar 51, no. And the reason that I say no is because on your FR Sky, when it's talking shop, right? When it's doing its thing and it's sending out transmissions, it is directly working through an FR Sky transmitter module, right? So what OpenTX sends in is exactly what comes out. With the multi-modules, it will automatically translate the AETR signal input to whatever you're connecting on the other side, whatever is connected to the other side, what it expects to receive by default. So the example there would be if Spectrum FR Sky expects to see AETR by default. Futaba expects to see AETR by default, or SFHSS, the frequency hopping spread spectrum protocol. Spectrum expects to see TAER by default. So what the multi-module does is it takes whatever input you give it, and it automatically rearranges those channels to be the default of whatever receiver type you're bound to. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So an FR Sky that runs OpenTX and transmits on a native transmitter module, it would not do any kind of rearrangement or interpretation because it assumes that it's always going to be connecting to an FR Sky receiver on the other side. So, Wild Bill, glad you're all right, man. It sounds like you survived a pretty crazy event there. Fred Barron, what's going on? Paul McNeil, absolutely. So, William Bevel, you talking about me? I'm not that smart, man. I just read a lot of books. Awesome. So JJ Londy, you're good to go probably then. 13192 AETR is pretty good. So when I did my firmware and SD card, it set up default order TAER. Now when I did the protocol, I did TAER. That's perfect, BD Tennessee. Then if you send TAER into the multi-protocol module, then you shouldn't need to make any adjustments coming out on the other end. But when you go to, say, so BD Tennessee, the other thing to keep in mind is when you're using, say, a Spectrum receiver, you need to plug in everything TAER on the Spectrum receiver. And when you use, say, FR Sky, for example, you need to plug in AETR. And Kenny, the reason that yours works no matter what is because FR Sky receivers don't give it crap. Whatever you set channel 1 to, that's what it's going to output, right? So you can have it TAER, AETR, whatever. You plug your servos in, you can rearrange things. And you can do that in the TX16S as well. You're not going to hurt anything if you plug stuff into the wrong port. But there are certain limitations to that when you're talking about Spectrum. Because Spectrum receivers have that SRXL2 bidirectional serial communication over the signal wire on channel 1 only. Barry Campbell, that's right. Captain Photon, what's up, man? You go grab you some AA batteries and crank that biatch up yet? Hey, Robert O, sometimes that's my favorite. That's my favorite channel order. ARSE. Sergio Campos, negative. That is a negative. Dynam bind and fly planes bind to Detrum radios only. And Detrum receivers are one of the few that I know of that there is no protocol in a TX16S, that will talk to a Detrum receiver, which is kind of a shame. Because the Detrum receivers aren't necessarily bad, but the radios... Detrum and Dynam do go hand in hand. Captain Photon, you're going to need to go, and the batteries are not included, sir. The Postal Service gets pissed off if you try to ship batteries. Go figure. So, Wild Bill, I've got a question for you, right? So, the beard is getting thick, but it's not long yet. But it's getting thick, right? So, it's trying to get long. And don't laugh at me, right? It's like an inch past my chin right now. And I know that you have crazy Wild Bill beard. All right, I feel like I'm in one of those stages of transition where, I just need to let it grow for another month or so and get, get another inch on it and just keep going. But it's acting like crap right now, man. It's not doing what I want. It's probably been so long that you grew your beard out that you don't remember how you trained it to stop being crazy. And right now it's being crazy. It wants to all curl up this way and just follow the contour of my chin instead of growing down. I want the Billy Gibbons look, man. I need ZZ Top. I need Santa Claus. And that's what I'm... George Watts got jokes. That's funny. Right? So that's what I'm doing, man, is I want Santa Claus. I want Billy Gibbons. I want some ZZ Top action. So I can start playing my guitar again. Because I really feel like that's what's holding me back, right? Is I never had cool facial hair when I was playing guitar before, so I could only get so far. And my guitar playing was never going to break through that glass ceiling unless I had a big ass Billy Gibbons beard. That's the secret to success. If I got a big long Billy Gibbons beard, I'll be able to play my ass off. Man, Fred Barron, you're the second guy. Jeff's Custom RC, who's a hairstylist, says that I should use beard cream. Like, what the hell is beard cream? What, Fred Barron? You know, you're gonna tell me to mix up like some egg whites? Tie a gun band on it. Like Captain Lou Albano? Captain Lou Albano. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about. If you watch WWF in the early 80s, y'all know who Captain... What was his name? Lou. Captain Lou Albano or Albano, something like that. See, GB knows what I'm talking about. Lou Albano, yes. That guy had rubber bands like glued to his cheeks. Oh, you know what, man? I've got some shock oil. Well, if I wanted to know, like, what the best skirt was to wear to formal events, I'd probably be, you know, making references to Rowdy Roddy Piper. But instead, we're talking about rubber bands on your face, which made me think of Captain Lou. I mean, almost every life event can be related to 1980s wrestling. All right. So, I'm ready for more questions. Oh, Fred Barron, that's a good idea. I wonder if I can put like olive oil on it. Olive oil would be nice. It'd smell good. But I hear, is it olive oil that if you get it too close to your eyes, it'll make you like start crying? Dapper Dan. I could go to the store and see if I can find a bottle of Vitalis. Sprinkle some Vitalis on it. Or I can be like Dave Chappelle and sprinkle some crack on it. You mean a comb? Yeah. So I tried that too. I mean, I gotta comb it every morning. You know, I gotta comb it every morning. Because at night, like, it gets all crazy. Because it's coming out too far, man. And, you know, I don't know. Like, when you're growing out, like, when you want, like, the Santa Claus, Billy Gibbons look, you know, where I still want, like, that streamlined face, but I want the beard to just keep going and be long. You know, like, I still feel like I need to, like, cut a hole around my lips so people can see what I'm saying. But, like, do you just let the rest go and just let it grow? And then just comb it every day and try to train it and oil it up and condition it and all that crazy crap? I don't know. I never tried to grow a long beard. I think it's VO5, Randy, not VO7. Some hot Earl treatment. Ken Sprouse, the reason that you're only getting a single wag from the servos is because all you've got going is AS3X right now. That second wag is once you have safe enabled. There's a ZZ Top documentary on Netflix right now, George. I will be watching that. So Sea Mafia, you know, I can't remember when it was. Like who? It was some disgraced lady back in the days of like Penthouse. It wasn't Tanya Harding, although she was pretty ugly too. Not an attractive lady. There was some other lady that I want to say Jerry Falwell claimed that he was, or she was claiming that she had had an affair with Jerry Falwell. And this lady had hair hanging down below her knees. But it wasn't coming from her head, it was coming from like her butthole. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Am I going to have to edit that out? All right. So now that we have dove well into the depths of the worst things on YouTube, we can maybe talk about more RC things. Are there any other questions that people have about RC things? Favorite aeroplanes? Favorite radios? Oh, Kenny, the R168 does work fantastic. It even works fantastic with S-Bus out into like Hobby Eagle and the Detrum gyros, which also surprisingly work very well. So yeah, that R168, thoroughly impressed with that thing for like $11. Freaking awesome. Yes, Barry Campbell, I have tried it and it kicks ass. Very happy. Very happy. I mean, who would have thought that for $11 we could get a receiver that would perform like that? That thing is amazing for $11. Crazy. Roach Coach, you talking about fixed wing landings? Because I think you can ask anybody that was down in Florida during the Mary Boozer event, Toys for Tots. I ain't no good at landing either, dude. I suck at that game. Yep, the Flex Aura 8 can also take S-Bus input. Actually, the Flex Aura 8, talk about flex. The Flex Aura 8 is one of the most flexible as far as, with the exception of like your purpose-built flight controllers. So most flight controllers can accept a multitude of serial protocol inputs. So things that are running like iNav, Betaflight, etc., Clean Flight, you can set up a multitude of different serial protocols coming in. And, by serial protocols, I mean like FR Skies, FR Sky uses S-Bus, Futaba uses S-Bus. Spectrum has several different ones. They've got SRXL, SRXL2. I think FlySky has their own version of S-Bus that they call something else. I don't remember what they call it. Z-Bus, who knows? I forget. But it's some kind of bus, right? But there's a lot of different serial protocols out there, right? Every manufacturer's damn near got one. S-Bus is an open source standard. Which is why a lot of companies have kind of gravitated towards S-Bus for serial. But like those iNav, Clean Flight, Betaflight, those flight controllers, they all have the ability to use multiple different serial protocols, and it's selectable. You know, you go in there and you pick which one you want. The Flex Innovations Aura 8 is the same way. You know, so if you're looking for an external gyro that is compatible with the serial output of most receivers out there, that is definitely the way you want to go. And it's got 8 individual outputs. So you can take something like a micro receiver, you know, so say you've got a Spectrum micro receiver. In fact, let me dig in my goodie bag. I got one of them in here somewhere. I do believe. Maybe it's not in here. No, it's not in this goodie bag. It's in a different one. So, this guy right here, this is the Spectrum SPM 4650. Now, to give you guys an idea of what I mean by micro receiver, and for you drone guys, you know, that have been doing this stuff for a while, this won't be impressive. But for people that don't have any experience with drone stuff, you can take this little itty bitty thing right here. Don't pay no attention to my pajama pants, perverts. So, I don't know, the light's not going to catch it. But this little tiny receiver, that's what I mean by a micro receiver. Still standard antennas. But the idea is that this thing is small, right? So this receiver doesn't have any PWM outputs, meaning that you can't hook a servo directly up to this receiver. But what I can do is I can run the output of this receiver, right? It's got positive, it's got negative, and it's got a signal wire. That signal wire is bidirectional SRXL2 serial output that will bind to a Spectrum transmitter. So I can take this and plug it into an Aura 8, and the 8 outputs on the Aura 8 are now available in whatever transmitter I connect this guy to, which makes this, in conjunction with an Aura 8, an outstanding combination. Robert Ortleb, yes. Yeah, like I was saying, most of the quad community, those guys have been using these little micro receivers forever. But, you know, most airplane guys are using PWM receivers that have standard servo outputs. You know, but with something like an Aura 8, you can use one of these tiny, tiny, tiny little micro receivers, use the serial output to unlock all of the 8 PWM outputs, and then, you know, you've got your aileron, elevator, rudder, or you can set it up for funky stuff. You can do, you know, independent ailerons, flaperons, wings, V-tails. You know, the Aura 8 will let you do anything you want. That is an incredibly well done gyro, but you do need some kind of receiver to go with it. So you can either use like a big receiver, or you can go with a little bitty tiny micro receiver, because all you need is that serial output from your micro receiver, and the antennas on this guy, they're diversity antennas, and it works just as well as any of the other diversity style Spectrum receivers as far as range goes. So Randy, there is a way to do S-Bus with Spectrum. So S-Bus is not necessarily something that is built into the transmitter. It is something that is interpreted by the receiver and output across the serial ports, right? So if the receiver is set up to output S-Bus, it's going to output S-Bus. The Spectrum receivers are programmed to output SRXL. That's Spectrum's serial interface. SRXL2 is their new and improved version of SRXL. S-Bus, S-Bus2, completely different serial protocols. Whatever it is that FlySky uses, completely different serial protocol. X-Bus, which is, Spectrum's telemetry bus, is different. The smart port on FrSky is FrSky's telemetry protocol. But that's all handled at the receiver level. That's not the transmitter, right? Where I'm going with this is if you want S-Bus on a Spectrum system, you can get it if you're using Orange RX receivers. Tom Scholler, not really. I have not done a lot. In fact, the only real content that I've got on the channel of the TX16S is when I ripped it apart and did the carbon fiber faceplate and the red anodized aluminum upgrade package. Captain Photon, there's a little toggle switch on the front. You just flip it. Just flippity doodah. Just clickety, click, click, click. So interestingly, what I found out on the TX16S when, because I don't know how many of you guys actually stomach the entire 3-hour, fiasco where I was adding the CNC package to this. I went ahead and installed the gimbal spacers in here, which, lower the sticks down just a hair, about it's actually probably, it's over 1/8 of an inch, but less than 1/4, and I don't feel like busting out fractions. I'd say it's a good 5 to 6 millimeters of depth that it creates. So it sits the whole gimbal 5 to 6 millimeters under, where it used to be. So if it used to be sitting here, it drops it down a little bit. Now, initially, I was like, that feels decent. I didn't have those spacers on there before, but I thought I'd try it out, see how I like it. Is it any more comfortable for me? What I found out is that when the sticks go down and to the inside, the top of the stick hits the plastic and prevents it from going to the full stop when you go down and in, which means that if I want to set up safe select on a Spectrum receiver and I do this right here, I can never get to the right inputs because it won't go all the way to the down and innermost thing. So I could never set up safe select on a bind and fly airplane if I've got those stupid things in there, unless I went to really skinny sticks and made them taller anyway, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the spacers. So I'm going to be removing those spacers, which means, of course, that I have to take this thing apart one more time. Not super excited about that, but I'm going to get those spacers out of there because I want, obviously, for there to be a full range of travel in all directions. So, Jeff in Lower Alabama, you should be very close. So, the Spectrum module of the TX16S will do 100 milliwatts of output power. The only one where you don't get the full output power, and I think that this is kind of curious because the new Radiomaster receivers use this protocol. The FrSky module of the multi-protocol module in the TX16S only outputs at 75% of its rated output power. I don't know why it doesn't go any higher than that. So rather than transmitting at 100 milliwatts of output power, it only transmits at 75 watts of output power. How much in the real world does that really affect us? Maybe not much. But I mean, just know and understand, if you get a TX16 and you're running FrSky protocol, it's not running at the same output power as a true FrSky radio. What does that net you as far as gain goes and distance? I mean, either one of them are probably further than you'd be comfortable controlling the plane at anyway. But Spectrum outputs at 100 milliwatts. The TX16 outputs at 100 milliwatts on the Spectrum protocol on both DSMX and DSM2. So you shouldn't see a ton of difference between the range of the TX16S and a DX8. Nathaniel Pulling, no problem, man. No problem. Katie, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. I want to have that full range of travel all the time anyway. I didn't have the spacers on there before, and it always felt fun. In fact, when I'm sitting here like using this right now, it feels like they're even a little bit too low. Although it is easier for me, as a thumber, like I fly with my thumbs. Some people fly with their fingers. I think if I flew with my fingers, I wouldn't really like the sticks being as recessed as they are down in there. With my IX-12 and the NX-10 and IX-12 feel almost identical, guys. So for anyone that was wondering, like, how do the NX series feel compared to like a DX9, DX8, IX-12, etc.? Almost identical. Like if you are familiar with a DX9, if you're familiar with a DX9, an IX-12 is exactly the same as a DX9, with this being the exception. Everything from, with the exception of that screen, this is a DX9 case, with some modifications, obviously, but everything else is DX9, right? So if you're familiar with how a DX9 feels, where those sliders are, where your knobs are, all your switches, etc., then you already know what an IX-12 feels like. They feel great. And if you're familiar with the DX9/IX-12, all your sliders, your knobs, your switches, everything on the NX series radios is in basically the same spot as you're going to find it on the IX-12 and DX9. So it's instant familiarity, instant comfort. Now, the reason I bring all that up is my stick heights on an NX-10 or an IX-12 are, about the same as what they were on the TX16S before I put those gimbal spacers in there. So I mean, this is already comfortable for me, but you know, sometimes it can dig in a little bit, but they're also a little bit tighter. The springs are a little bit tighter in the Spektrum radios, you know, and that holds true for both the IX12 and the NX10. The IX12 and NX10 almost feel identical to me. The Radiomaster, I loosened the springs up a little bit, so I've got a little bit easier stick throws. But now the sticks are down, you know, which I thought would be easier for the thumbs, but just knowing that it's not going to bother me to raise those sticks back up that 4 or 5 millimeters to be able to get the full range of travel in all directions, and you know, and it just feels like the same stick height that I'm already comfortable with on all my other radios. So someone had asked me earlier, and I apologize for not answering this, but I do remember the question. Someone had asked me, hey, I want to get a DX8, but the Wi-Fi in my house is not that great. Is it still going to work? The answer to that is absolutely, right? The NX series, as you guys know, and I do have a video that's coming out on this very soon. It's already recorded, just got to get it edited. I've been very lazy. I've got like a dozen videos that I've recorded and just haven't edited and put out yet. So shame on me, I mean, for getting a job, right? I wish I could just stay at home all day and edit videos. The problem is I also watch TV, which is horrible for someone trying to run a YouTube channel. Now, the NX series, the only time that you connect to Wi-Fi is when you need to update the radio. Now, the other thing that's nice about these is if you don't have good Wi-Fi, you can still update them the same way that we used to update our DX series, right? You go into your Spektrum, your My Spektrum account, you find in your list of products your NX series radio, you can download the updates, copy the update to the root of an SD card, pop the SD card into the bottom. Now, the NX series, all they've got is a micro SD slot, where like the DX and the IX series had full-size SD slots. That's no longer the case with the NX. It's micro SD only, right? So you got to use a micro SD card, put the update file on there, turn the radio on, and it will do the update on its own. You do not need to do it over Wi-Fi. If you have Wi-Fi, it's certainly a little easier. You don't have to have a computer involved. But one thing that I'll tell you is, at least in my experience, and understanding that I have a very fast cable connection here at the house, I get like, I think 750 megabit per second download rates, which is pretty ridiculous for home internet. I know some people have, gigabit or whatever, and it's, this isn't a wiener size contest, but that's what I get. I get about 750 megabits per second, which is freaking fantastic. And this thing downloads at like, it's terrible. It downloads terribly slow. So, even though that, like if I click the update file on the computer, I go to the Spektrum page, and I click that file to download it, I mean, it's instant. I have it instantly. If I go and turn on the Wi-Fi in the NX series radio, and I tell it to download that update file, it takes forever. It takes like 10 minutes just to download that tiny, tiny update file. I mean, it is painfully slow. So, I mean, because it only uses the Wi-Fi to do updates anyway, you might be better off just never doing the updates over the Wi-Fi. Just put them on an SD card and fire it in there instantly, right? I got you, Ray. I got you. So your premiere starts. I got you. I'll end on time, brother. Yeah, and George Watch, I feel exactly the same way. I want all of my radios to have generally the same feel to them, right? Because I don't want to have to look down, to kind of see where I'm going. And that's what I really like about the TX16S for the most part, is all those switches and everything are in basically the same spot that they are on Spectrums. With the exception of this being a momentary switch. I wish that was 2-position. I may replace it someday, but then I lose a momentary switch. That kind of sucks. I think there's a place where I can solder in another momentary switch if I want to put one like on the corner, like you would have on a Spectrum radio. I think I can add a button in OpenTX, that there's an open UART that I can do that with. But all the other switches and everything are very similar. And, the gimbals feel very similar. They're a very similar distance. My trims are in very similar locations. So, that's one of the reasons that I really kind of taken to the TX16S, is because it does feel very familiar. It's not uncomfortable in the hands at all. It does not feel cheap. I'll tell you that right now. I certainly get that there's going to be folks out there that would be hesitant to try one of the Radiomaster TX16S radios because they're so cheap. The $150, right? But they don't feel cheap at all. I mean, this feels like a substantial piece of equipment. Every bit as substantial as an NX10. These both feel like quality pieces of gear. I mean, these are hefty beasts. And you guys saw when I had this thing pulled apart, when I was adding all that CNC stuff in there. I mean, that's all aluminum that I was putting in there, so I wasn't adding a bunch of weight. You guys got to see, just like I did, what's inside this thing. The weight doesn't come from just... some companies, and I know that this sounds cheesy as hell, some companies will add like a steel plate just to add some heft to it to make it feel more substantial than it is. I mean, this thing, it feels that way because it is substantial. They're great. I have no idea how they make money. Plains archery and table tennis, I will absolutely say that the NX10 has a more refined appearance to it. Certainly better engineering went into the design of the NX10, with the fold down antenna, the ergonomics, there's just better design went into there. The positioning of these rear switches, you don't have to like get your finger up over the side of the radio because they're recessed down a little bit, so they're easier to access. More thought went into the design of the NX10, but it's also $500. So I absolutely expect this $500 radio to outshine a $150 radio. And to me, in a lot of ways it does. It feels better in the hand. It's more comfortable to hold. It's everything about it is very like accessible. The programming is very easy. I do like the idea of a touchscreen. Even the TX16S, you can't access the touchscreen yet, but when you can, I think that's going to be pretty impressive, and I think people are going to like that. I have enjoyed having touchscreen available on the iX12, and that's one of the reasons that I still love the iX12 and intend to keep it. Because that touchscreen, even if it's a little sluggish, is awesome. Captain Photon, I think that is the saying. But I think that everybody at Coke would agree that that radio probably needs to be less weight. You could probably, put some yellowing agent on it or something. Road Coach, have a good night. BD Tennessee, I guess I'm, in some respects, I'm old enough that there's some things that I don't like, but I'm young enough that there's some things that I welcomed with open arms. Like texting with the old, I wanted to text people. And I didn't want to have anything to do with that, like T9 predictive text BS when you just had like the 12 buttons on the front of a stupid cell phone, like a flip phone. So like when the iPhone came out and like you could just type on a keyboard, or like the old school Blackberries, man, I was down. I was like, sweet, I got a whole keyboard. And when the iPhone came out and I had a full keyboard on a screen, man, iPads, get out of here. And I can just type, touchscreen. That was beautiful. Exactly, George Watts. So you get it. All right, guys, so we got about 5 minutes before we get out of here. If you guys have any questions left, be sure to squeeze those in here right at the last moment before we head out for the evening. Yeah, BD Tennessee, I get it, man, but I think that touchscreen technology has come far enough. So if you remember, some of the first devices out there that had touchscreens, and we're going way back here. Wow. Before I joined the Navy, so we're going back 25 years or so to like the old school Palm Pilots. Had a digitizer and a little plastic stylus, and they worked it out. Those old Palm Pilots, they were crappy. They weren't very reliable at all, and I get it. But we've been using touchscreens now, and even before Palm Pilots, we had like fog technology, which was finger on glass. It had like a grid, of little like photo cells, and it would just kind of pick where you touched the screen, and the photo cells would get broken, and that's how it knew how to register that you just touched it. So yeah, Airvex, that's what I said, Palm Pilots. But we're going way back, when we're talking about Palm Pilots. So touchscreen technology has been around for a long time, and the latest capacitive touchscreens, that you still got a digitizer, but now it doesn't need pressure. It doesn't need pressure to do anything. It just feels the tip of a finger, right? Capacitive touchscreens rarely fail unless you like drop that bitch on the ground and stomp it. Oh, right on. Palm goes way back, dude. The original Palm Pilot, I mean, that was early 90s. Early 90s, man. DX6 does not have a touchscreen. No, sir. So we got like a little less than 3 minutes left. So just as a reminder, we do have a website that is live now. So all of our affiliate partners, the affiliate links are in the are on the webpage, right? So I don't have like my PayPal address scrolling across the bottom. I don't put a lot of product links anymore in my descriptions. I have a product link for that one product and like my website. Everything is on the website. So if you're looking for my Horizon affiliate links, rcairmarshal.com. You can find the Horizon affiliate links. You can find my BitGo affiliate links. You can find Amazon. You can find Banggood. You can find the merch store. You can find my PayPal donation link. So all of that stuff is now right on the homepage. You go to rcairmarshal.com, and it's mobile friendly. It's real easy to use. So go check it out if you guys want to support the channel. That is the number one way that you can support the channel. You know, as far as like impact to you, you know, you can also join the channel. You can become a channel member, but that costs extra. You know, for a lot of you guys, we're all going to buy RC hobby stuff anyway. So go check out those affiliate links. Use them, support your guys. You know, I've got them, Ryan's got them, GB's got them, Wesley's got them. I think that Jeff's Custom RC has a couple of affiliate links now. Rich Baker, you know, RC Geek, freaking RC Sailors. Pick your favorite YouTuber. Go use their affiliate links. Mine are easily available at rcairmarshal.com. Go there, click on it. It pays a small commission to me at no extra charge to you, and it's the best thing that you can do to support our channels, because it doesn't take any money out of your pocket to put you know, a lot of support back in our pockets, and we absolutely appreciate that a ton. So it is 10 o'clock. A feedback section for what, Wild Bill? Like the channel? If you do have feedback for the channel, go to rcairmarshal.com and go to the Contact Us link, and you can shoot me an email directly, and then I'll probably just tell you to eat it. Like, thanks for the feedback. Suck it! Bill Shepard, thank you for coming out tonight. Josh A., good night to everybody. Guniac 33, Mr. Ray has a premiere coming up in 2 minutes, so don't miss that. And then also hang out after the premiere for Ray's show, which comes up at 10:15 Eastern, 7:15 Pacific. Everybody, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Have a great night, and we will see you guys all next week. Good night, guys.